highlight for you guys with regards to this presentation is that things can be done differently. And especially when it comes down to our understanding of how work gets done, we can apply ourselves in different ways as long as we understand what that might look like. And we all know, because of this whole COVID experience, it's become a different world, and that different world, we're all trying to find different ways in which we can be as effective as possible. Right? So the first question that I want to kind of throw out to you guys, right, is, what might be your definition of leadership, right? Because I want you to think about this, right? And you don't have to answer it, just think about it. Is if whenever we're in an organization or in a company and I ask this question live and I say, hey, listen, whoever here is a leader, stick up your hand. What tends to happen is that 90% of the people sit and look around and wait for the person who is of the most senior role to stick up their hand and say, I'm the leader. And so generally speaking, when we talk about leadership, we always have this sense of waiting for somebody else to step up before we do, right? But that's not what leadership is. Leadership is our ability to take charge and apply ourselves in a different way, hence the word change. And we do that for the betterment of ourselves, for the organization, for society. We're seeing a lot of kind of bottoms-up leadership, and we looking in terms of, for example, if you look at the United States right now, right, there's a lot of kind of bottoms-up leadership where people are stepping up and they're taking on some form of leadership role because they feel that that's what they need to do to kind of inspire change, right? And I want you to look at my definition, and this is not my definition personally, but this is the one I love the most, right? There are probably about 1,000 different definitions of leadership, but this is my favorite definition, and that is, if your actions inspire others to dream more, do more, learn more, and become more, you are a leader. And that's very powerful, because what that means is that every single one of you that is sitting in this audience watching this presentation right now, you are a leader in some aspect of your life. It doesn't matter if you are a janitor or if you are a CEO. We all have experiences in our lives where we are leaders. It could be as a parent, it could be as a sibling, it could be as a sports team member, it could be at work. It doesn't really matter, but we all have to, at some points in time in our lives, have to exhibit some form of leadership. So leadership is not something that is only a privilege to people who are in senior level executive positions. And in my opinion, that's not the only population that organizations should be investing in with regards to leadership skills. It's the whole population should understand what it really means to be a leader and what it really means to step up to the plate, and how that can really benefit not just themselves, but also how it can benefit the organization and ultimately society. And that's really kind of what we want out of this, right? So we heard a nice little introduction about me earlier. I'm gonna add that, because you might say, what's this Western guy doing in a Tai Chi uniform? Kind of talking about mind-body leadership. Where does this come from, right? And the interesting thing is that I've had kind of a colorful life, and that's one of the reasons I'm actually probably culturally confused, honestly, right? And the reason is because when I was a child, I grew up in Holland, in the Netherlands. But the reason why I grew up in Holland is because my mom is a political refugee. And she was a political refugee because in her home country, which was South Africa back in the day, she was a freedom fighter. And she's one of 3 South African women who was jailed for her activities in South Africa, but because of her skin color, she was too much of an embarrassment. So instead of putting her in jail like they did, for example, with Nelson Mandela, they threw her out of the country. And so Holland was one of the very few countries that would take her in, and that's where I was born. And so I was born in Western culture, Western society. But the funny thing about my mom is my mom always had this understanding that one of the greatest gifts she could give us as children is to expose us in a very cultural way, to making sure that we understand that there are many different points of view out there, and we don't have to conform to just the point of view that society that we happen to be living in at that moment in time is dictating to us. Right? And initially as a child, I found that quite confusing because my mom would always kind of be asking, like, what's the other perspective? What's the other angle? I remember being, living in Western society is very heavy, right? For example, in Christianity and Catholic, and I was in a Catholic school, and they made me do Bible studies, right? And when I was doing Bible studies, my mom made me read the Quran and the I Ching, right? She was like, you're not going to only read one religious piece of work, right? And then think this is religion. You need to have these different perspectives so that you can develop an appreciation of what it really means to be religious. And so, of course, being a kid, that in a Western society, that was quite interesting. The other thing that she did was when I was 5 years old, she took me to martial arts class. Now, I'm sure all of you guys have, kind of seen martial arts classes as they are today. But when I was a child, I'm 54 now, so when I was 5 years old, you're talking about 1970, 1971, somewhere around there, right? Now, this is a time when Bruce Lee was still alive, and he was fighting duels to the death to be able to get permission to be able to teach foreigners martial arts, right? So a completely different era. And so when I was 5 years old, she took me to a martial arts class, and there were only grown-ups. There were only men. There weren't even females back then, right? It was literally just grown men. And I was 5 years old, and I was in this class, and she kept me in that class, and I actually ended up really enjoying it. And part of that martial arts training that I grew up in was also exposing me to kind of Asian philosophies, right? So really thinking about, not just I Ching, but, think about Lao Tzu's Art of War, many other different, philosophies coming out of Japan and China and India, and I ended up growing up as a kid reading a lot about Asian philosophy while at the same time living in a Western society and going to a Western school. And a funny thing happened to me when I was in high school is that I was learning in science class. I was learning about Newton's law, right? Newton's third law is an object will continue going in the same direction at the same speed, permitting it is that force is stopped with an object of the same amount of speed or the same amount of force or greater, right? And it was really funny because I was reading that at that point in time, and it's like, why would you want to stop an object, right, going at that speed? Why wouldn't you just get out of the way, right? Why does that object need to be stopped? And because I was thinking about things in a very different way, and so it was that combination of kind of East and West that helped me evolve as a human being and really develop an appreciation for Eastern philosophy while educating myself in Western science. I'm a neuroscientist by training, so I've gone through I've done the research, I've gone through that whole, and the interesting thing about Western research is that Western research is all about we only believe what we see. If you read any research paper on any topic in Western research, it's all about can we see it? And today, even still, in modern society, research is all about if we can't see it, we don't believe it. It's not there, right? But yet, in Asian philosophy, we know that there's stuff out there that we can't measure, that we can't even see, but we just know instinctively and intuitively, we know it's there, and that everything in this world is, or even in this universe, right, is connected. It's connected by an energy, and that energy that pulls everything together creates a bond where we are all connected as human beings, and it doesn't matter where we are on this planet. We are all connected through that same energy, and I find this extremely fascinating, because especially if you look in the way we run businesses, because in businesses today, they're all run on Western science and Western philosophy. It's all about data. You run a company on data, and if we can't see it, it doesn't exist. And if we can't see it, we don't want to invest in it. Even though we might feel it's real, right? But we still don't want to invest in it. And a great example of that is in human resources. Human resources is, unfortunately, for a large part, an intangible industry. There's a tremendous amount of data that we use, but ultimately, it's about improving the human experience in an organization. And in order for us to be able to do that, we can't only look at data. We also have to look at the intangibles. What is of value? What is a person's happiness? How are their engagement levels? Do they have levels of psychological safety, right? And we try and figure that out through questionnaires and all of that kind of stuff. But generally speaking, companies are really reluctant to invest money in their people, because it's all just kind of, I can't measure it, right? It doesn't have that immediate return of investment, because I can count dollars and cents, but I can't count happiness, right? But the beautiful thing of COVID that is happening to us right now is the fact that every single business leader that I speak with at this point, the one thing that they are all learning from this COVID is how important our people are compared to our processes. People matter more than processes. And it's the intangibles that have actually kept the companies thriving, not the tangibles. It's the people, how they're connected together, how they were able to create a community in the digital world, all being in social isolation, and having that motivation and desire and drive to continue working together to be able to create something that allows the company to still survive. And it's those companies that weren't able to do that, weren't able to have that culture. Those were the countries that really struggled with that. Right? So it's really about understanding that these intangibles have great value for the organization, and for business leaders to start understanding that if they don't invest in those intangibles and they don't spend more time focusing out, they're just going to fall back in old behaviors and become equally inadaptable to the dinosaurs that we've seen that went extinct, right? In 60 million years ago. That happens to companies as well if they don't have that level of adaptability. And our adaptability and our agility is determined by people, and is determined by their relationships and their connections, right? And I believe that we are at the cusp of seeing a whole new generation and appreciation of human resources. I really believe we are only at the ground level with regards to understanding the power that we have of tapping that intangible energy that we all have together. And so I ended up, kind of as a professional coach. I've always had this conversation for the past 10 years. I've had this conversation with many business leaders, and it is now starting to trickle through where they just got to say, hey, you know what? There is more to this than just looking at data and looking at it kind of from a Western science perspective. So our future organizations, in my opinion, are going to be able to start blending both together, right? Where we fully appreciate and understand the data, but at the same time also fully appreciate what we can do with those intangibles. Like, for example, working with energy. What is the energy in the organization, right? And to me, the energy is like the climate. When you walk into a company, you can ask yourself, what three kind of types of weather, right, are in this organization, and you can feel it right away. You don't need to do a poll, honestly, right? You can walk into an office and you can feel whether or not it's stormy outside, whether it's cloudy, or whether it's sunny, right? People behave differently. And so the same counts with that intuition. And Western science has done some real great work with this over the years. And an interesting thing is, for example, recently they did research where they had a business leader who had high blood pressure. And so what they did is they put a blood pressure monitor on each of the employees that was in this office. And as the business leader walked into the office, everybody's blood pressure went up. Right, so that again shows through Western science that we rub off on each other in some way or another, and often in many ways that we don't understand yet, right? And it's having that appreciation that's going to make things very important for the future development of the organizations. And that's what I do today. That's really kind of like blending those two. How can we take these Asian philosophies and these ideas around energy and connectedness and apply those to a Western kind of business strategy, right? And so that's my work today. So I want you to think about this. When we look at human behavior, right? The human brain has a tendency to only do three things, right? It feels, it thinks, and it does. It acts, right? That's the only three things the brain does. As complicated as this organ up here might be, it basically boils down to these three things. An interesting thing about this is that not all people apply all three consciously. Very often, we only apply one or two of them in a conscious way, and the others happen in a subconscious way. We're not aware of that they are happening. And so there are people out there who are dominant in the kind of the thinking and doing space, right? These are the kind of people who have a complete disregard for how other human beings might feel, right? They struggle with empathy, but they're really good with strategy. And they have this ability to say, you know what, it's just business, right? The business comes first, and the plan needs to come first, and and that's how I'm going to move this, right? On the other hand, there are also people who feel and do, right? Feel and do people tend to be very reactive in nature. So they're very emotional, right? They get emotionally involved, and then they react in an emotional way. And so they have a tendency to behave angry or behave frustrated or anything like that. Then there's a population of people who simply think and feel. Right? That's all they do all day. They're quiet, and all they do is think, feel, think, feel, think, feel, think, feel, and nothing happens. Right? But there's so much going on in their heads, but there's no activity whatsoever, right? Now, when we look at mind-body leadership, what we want to try and do is we want to try and synchronize those three together so that all three of those processes become a conscious experience, right? So when we are consciously thinking, feeling, and doing at the same time, that's when we can kind of get ourselves into that performance zone. In the Western world, we call that flow, right? Where we can be in a state of relaxation and be able to kind of perform at the best way that we can. But it requires a level of awareness and consciousness. And that level of awareness and consciousness is generally not taught in a Western world. It's also very often kind of frowned upon, right? Talking about feelings and all of these kind of like, what business does that? Like, what boss comes and say, hey, how's it going? How are you feeling today? Right? We don't have that tendency to want to do that because it's just weird, right? But the truth is the more that we are connected with that, the better that we perform. And everything that happens in our minds also happens in our bodies. Now, why is that relevant? Because when we understand that how we feel affects how the body functions, we can use the body as a barometer to understand that think, feel, and do. So I'll give you an example. I'm sure plenty of you guys have been frustrated before. You've been angry before. You've been, all of those kind of things. And when you did, if you think back at one of those experiences, think back about how your body felt. Did your body feel tense? Did you feel your heart rate beating out of your chest? Did your breathing change? All of those kind of things are really making sure that we try to be able to function, right? And so it prepares us for kind of a fight or flight response, right? So where we go into this fight or flight response, body's prepared by pumping up hormones and neurotransmitters up into our brain. It makes us focus on the target or the threat that we might be seeing, and how can we defend ourselves against that, right? And so what this graph is actually a cycle of perception to action, right? And so if you look at number one, what we're really doing is when information comes into our heads, we take that information and then we add our own personal experience, our own personal interpretation, our biases, our knowledge, all of that kind of stuff, and we create our own story. We create our own experience. Now that experience can be great, it can also be not so great. And when that happens, it changes the physiology in our bodies. Our bodies feel different with each of those experiences, right? Now, when we are in a fight or flight response, we then have a tendency to rather focus, from focusing on the information that's coming into our heads, we have a tendency to focus on the source of information. So if somebody says something to us that we don't like, we stop focusing on what that person said and we actually start focusing on that person. We say, I don't like that person, right? Because that person wasn't nice to me, right? But in reality, they just said something that wasn't nice. And so we shift our attention. And then from there, we create our own personal strategy. Very often this happens in a split second, right? Of how we're going to act and react to that situation. And the unfortunate thing about that is if we do that, right? Often the outcomes are not as favorable. So what we can learn through mindfulness and Tai Chi and exercise and things like that is that we can use the body as a barometer, as a pressure barometer. And we can almost kind of like say, hey, listen, let's break that circuit. When we start feeling that pressure come up, what can I do to bring that pressure down? And here's something that's really interesting. Talk about an intangible that makes money. So 4 years ago, they did research on this. In the UK, they were actually at the London Stock Exchange, and they taught a bunch of London, kind of these high energy, type A personalities. They taught them how to kind of be conscious of their bodies and understand how their bodies feel and be connected with their bodies. That's it. Now, the interesting thing is those traders who learned this skill ended up selling 30% more than their counterparts who did not learn this skill, right? And so what that shows is that when we take those intangibles, the things that we simply, how do you measure that, right? But when we take that time to appreciate it and still be able to utilize it, we actually help the organization make a tremendous amount of money. And the funny thing about this is that most organizations today still function on a Western mindset. So their performance potential is still limited because they haven't expanded beyond that realm, right? And so ultimately what this comes down to is our understanding of energy, because as I mentioned earlier, energy connects us together, but it also dictates how we feel. If we have positive energy, we feel great. If we have negative energy, we feel tight. And we can measure the amount of energy that's being utilized properly in our brains by doing brain testing. That's where the neuroscientists, that I am kind of comes to play here, right? And so what I'd like to do today is I want to do a little neuroscience test with you. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to have a little bit of fun with a brain test. All right, and it's a quick 45-second test, and it's going to give you an indicator of your baseline brain function in a specific executive function. Now, this is a real scientific test that we're doing today. After that, we're going to do 8 minutes of Tai Chi. Simply 8 minutes of Tai Chi, that's it, right? And then we're going to retest. We're going to do the test again. And what I want to try and do with you, every single one of you who's attending, I'm going to try and boost that energy that's in your brain to see if that makes a difference through these various different movements. Yeah? So, also the great thing is you don't have to get out of your chair, you're not going to sweat, you're not going to do anything, like you're simply going to connect with your body. Right? So who's game? Is that something you'd be interested in? Yeah, you can type that into your little chat. Yeah, absolutely. It's gonna be a great experience, and I can probably pretty much say you've never done this before, right? Okay, so it's gonna be a first for you. But what's important is that the learning lesson that you might be able to get out of this. Yeah. All right. So here it comes. I'm going to just change my slide here for a second. There we go. All right, so now what you're going to be looking at, apart from my head with a little thing, here is a sheet with a bunch of color words on them, right? Now what you see is you see 5 columns of words. Each column has 10 words. So the whole page has 50 words, all right? Now, if you observe these words closely, you will see that they're all color words. The word red, green, brown, orange, blue, and purple, and so on, right? But they are printed in a different color, right? Now, what I'm going to ask you to do is I'm going to ask you to read out loud. Luckily, you're on mute, so we don't hear you, right? You're going to read out loud as fast as you can, column by column. You're going to start at the left column, second column, third column. You're going to work from top to bottom. You're going to work all the way through that page, reading it as fast as you can, only saying the color in which the word is printed, not the word itself. So what that means is if you see the top left word, the word says brown, right? But it's printed in the color red. So what do you think I want you to say? Exactly. I want you to say the color red. Now what that's going to do, it's going to create a little bit of conflict in your mind. And we're going to measure that conflict, because the more efficient you are at overcoming that conflict, that is an energy related issue. All right? So we're going to have some fun with this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my stopwatch. Just grabbing that right now. Here we go. Stopwatch. So you will see my stopwatch. Going to hold it in front of me. All right. Now I am going to time you for 45 seconds. Right. So when I say start, you're going to read column by column. Now, there might be that at the end of this 45 seconds, or before the end of this 45 seconds, you hit the word green at the bottom, where you actually say blue. Right. You hit that at the bottom right. If that's the case, and I have not said stop yet, go back to the beginning of the page on the top left and just continue on from there. Now, when I say stop, you're going to count the number of times you read the page, then you're going to count the number of columns that you read, and then you're going to run your finger down the number of words that you read in the last column, and that's going to give you an exact number that you were able to read in 45 seconds. All right? Now, what I want you to do with that is I want you to write down that number, whatever it is, for yourself. All right? So you don't have to tell anybody. This is your little research project. It's personal for you. I don't need to know the details. I don't need to know the data. All right? Okay, so are we all ready? Do we understand the instructions? I'm sure we do. All right? Okay, here it comes. Yeah, absolutely. All right. Okay, so I just need to make sure I'm on the screen. Yep. There we go. All right, so we all see the screen now. Here it comes. Are we ready? 3, 2, 1, start. and stop. So I'll show you, I actually did 45 seconds, so you can see it, yeah? All right, so what I want you to do is you're gonna run your finger kind of down the columns. How many columns did you read? You know, let's say you're at the third word from the top right on the last column. You go 1, 2, 3, 4, that's 4. That's 40 words, and then 3 is 43. So you know that you read 43. That would be an example. Yeah? And just write it down on a piece of paper. You don't have to tell anybody about this. All right? Okay, perfect. Now, from here, I'm going to give you the results. So, what I want you to look at, right, is I want you to look at the right red column. And from there, I want you to look at how many words you read in that 45 seconds, right? Now, if you did it correctly, then you know, you're probably in and around, most people are in and around kind of like anything from 30 to 50 or 60 or something like that. If you read it really fast, chances are you may have read just the word that was printed rather than the color itself, right? You know, so that's something you might want to be aware of. So here's the thing. Look at the number of words that you read, and then find the number that's closest to that, right? And then draw a line to the left, and you'll see at what age group your brain is performing. Now, what we all know from neuroscience is that an older brain is a slower brain, right? It doesn't mean it's you know, not as wise or anything like that. We just know that as brains get older, they perform slower. They also learn slower, and they apply themselves a little bit. They're also less adaptable. That's why old people have a tendency to struggle a lot more with change than, for example, younger people, because our brains are very pliable. So there's a correlation between our age and the ability to apply that. So at this moment in time, you know what your brain age is at this point of day. This is not a fixed thing. It's not that your brain is always this age. It is at this moment in time. It's just a snapshot of how old your brain is performing at this moment, right? And if you were to now kind of sit at your desk and eat a donut, right, you know, and drink coffee with a lot of cream and things like that, chances are that brain age is going to go up and your performance is going to go even slower, right? Because it's all connected. Now what we're going to do is we're going to do 8 minutes of Tai Chi, all right? So I'm going to do a little Tai Chi exercise with you guys. So I'm going to switch my screen because you don't need to see this slide. Here we go, here I am. And so all I want you to do is you're going to follow me, right, in these exercises. They're very simple. It's mostly just breathing exercises and things like that. And I'm actually going to put up a little 8-minute timer. Yeah, so you can all see the timer, 8 minutes, and when I press start, we're going to get going. All right, so are we all ready? Here it comes, 8 minutes. I'm pressing the timer, and I'm going to step back a little bit just so you can see me. So for your first minute, what I want you to do is just simply sit and relax. And I want you to observe your body. Observe your body from the inside out. Connect for a moment with your body. Feel your body. Feel how your body feels. Is there tension? Is there tension in my shoulders? Is there tension in my arms and in my legs? And if there is, just try and let it go. Right? Just focusing on your breathing. Inhale through your nose and exhale through your mouth. So inhale through your nose, exhale through your mouth. And just do that a few times and see if you can just let some of this tension go and give yourself permission to just connect with how your body feels. Now, from here, I want you to take a deep breath in through your nose, and you're going to scoop your hands up to your shoulders this way. Yeah, you could be a sitting, standing position, doesn't matter. And when you scoop your hands up, I want you to feel the airflow of the air around you touching the palms of your hands, just like it's water. Think of water. Now, as you exhale, you're going to turn your hands down, and you're going to let the water leave your hands as you drop down. So you inhale again, feel the air like it's water, and let it flow out of your hands and exhale. Again, inhale, feel the air in your hands, exhale, drop down. Very nice. Let's do that one more time. Inhale. Feel the airflow in the hands, and then exhale and drop. Beautiful. All right, now from here, we're going to take the hands to the shoulders. Inhale. But now we're going to take that air and we're going to push it away from us. Push. Pass the air, pass the energy on ahead of you, right? Inhale, bring the hands to the shoulders, and exhale and drop down. So again, inhale, hands to the whole shoulder. Take that air, take your energy, right? Take that energy and pass it on. Exhale. Inhale. And exhale and drop. Let's do that one last time. Inhale, hands to the shoulders. Take the energy, pass the energy on. It's all positive and pure and clean energy. And just pass it on. Beautiful. Inhale. And exhale. Now we're going to do the same exercise with our surroundings. So we're going to share this energy with the world around us. So we inhale, and now we're going to press up. Press towards the ceiling and press the energy all the way around the room. And as we're exhaling, you're going to bring your hands all the way down to the front and back to the bottom again. Yeah, so you inhale, deep inhalation. You're going to press the energy up and a big circle around as you finish your exhalation. Good. Let's do that again. Inhale. Big circle. Exhale. Share the energy with the world around you. Connect with the air. Connect with the energy. Inhale. Exhale. Share the energy. Beautiful. One last time. Inhale. Exhale. Very, very nice. Good. Now we're going to practice something called flowing. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to counter you on this one. So I want you to raise your right arm up in front of you this way. And I want you to relax your arm. So there cannot be any tension in your arm. And sometimes we see people like this, right? So just relax your arm, right? Now from here, notice that my elbow is lower than my hand. And as I exhale and drop my hand back down, the elbow is going to drop first, then the hand. So it looks like this. Inhale, exhale. And again, feel that flow in your arm. Inhale, exhale. Beautiful. Let's do that with the other arm. Inhale, exhale. Feel slight tension in the fingertips if you need to, but other than that, your body is completely relaxed. As you're moving your body, do a self-check and check whether or not you're relaxed. Inhale, exhale. Good. Let's do that with two hands. Inhale. Good. Relax those arms completely. Exhale, drop down. Good. Again, inhale. Exhale. Let's do that one last time. Inhale. Beautiful. And exhale. Nice. We're going to add a little bit more movements. Now, as the movements get a little bit more complicated, I want you to focus on simply relaxing. So I want you to rotate to your right. Rotate to your right. As you rotate to your right, you're going to bring your hands up in that flowing motion that we just practiced. Arms are relaxed. Good. Now you're going to bring your hands to the front. And then from here, bring your hands to your shoulders and drop down. Now the way this works with your breathing is you're going to inhale, bring your hands up. Exhale, hands to the front. Inhale, hands to the shoulders. Exhale, drop down. Good. Let's do that to the other side. So now we're going to rotate to the left. Rotate to the left. Inhale, arms up. Exhale, come to the front. Good. Inhale, hands to the shoulders. Exhale, drop down. We're going to do one more time on each side. Inhale to the right. We're arms up. Exhale, come to the front. Inhale, hands to the shoulders. Exhale, drop down. Last time on the other side, we're going to the left. Rotate. Inhale. Hands up. Relax, relax, relax. Rotate to the front. Inhale, hands to the shoulders. Exhale, drop down. Good. We have one last exercise to go. From here, I want you to raise up your right hand in the same way that we did with the flow. So very relaxed. Now you're going to rotate to the right. Rotate to the right. Focus on your relaxation and drop your hand down. Good. Let's do that one more time. Arm up. Rotate to the right. Drop down. Nice. We're going to do that on the other side too. To the left. So raise up your left arm. Rotate to the left and drop. Good. Focusing on your breathing. Inhale. Exhale, rotate and drop. We're going to combine these movements. Whoops. We're going to combine these movements together, and it looks like this. You're going to inhale and rotate. And as you do that, as you stop here, you're going to bring up your other hand in a flowing motion. You're going to rotate in the opposite direction. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Very nice. Good. And as you noticed, time is up. Good. How are you feeling? Does that feel a little different? I bet it does. Yeah, feels different, right? Okay, now, it's good, right? Okay, so we're going to go back to our testing again. So we're going to practice that test. So we're going to do exactly the same assessment. The only difference is that I've mixed up the words. So if you try to kind of memorize the words, it wouldn't work because they're all there. It's a different set of words. All right. Okay. So I'm going to set up the stopwatch again. All right. So here's the stopwatch. We're ready for 45 seconds. Are you ready? Get ready. Here it comes. 3, 2, 1, go. And stop. Good. So you can see 45 seconds. Yeah. All right. So again, you're going to run your finger column by column. And then on that last word, you're going to figure out how many columns you read, how many words in that last minute. And from there, you're going to write down what number. Yeah. Good. Awesome. And again, let's look at that number. Let's look at the table. So again, you're going to look at the number of words you could read, find that corresponding number that comes as close as possible to yours, and then you're going to shift to the left and you're going to see what age group you are in now. Now, I do not need to know what your result is, all right? So the only thing I want to know from you is there a difference, a positive difference? So did your age perform, or did your brain age perform younger? It's crazy, right? Yeah. So exactly, and very often what people then end up doing, they go, well, what did this, right? What's the magic? There is no magic, right? Honestly, all you did was allowed your brain to do 3 things at the same time, right? That was to think, to feel, and to do. That's what you did. And the moment that you did that, you ended up being in the zone. Now you can think and feel and do in any way that you can, in any way that you want. We can, we use all different types of forms of exercise, but whatever it is, the moment that we apply consciousness and we do that in a think, feel, and act way, we perform better. We make better decisions, we strategize better, we empathize better, we communicate better. We do all of these kind of things simply by being connected to ourselves. Yeah? All right, well, that's all from me. We are on the top of the hour, so that's pretty much all I have to share from you. Here are a couple of resources for you. Of course, number one is my book, which you can see there, but also, check out my website, check out my YouTube channel. I have on my YouTube channel, which is just my name, on my YouTube channel, I have like 16 different Tai Chi exercises, kind of similar to what you did, and each segment is only 2 minutes. And it's called 2-Minute Tai Chi. So you can use those exercises to create a similar experience, as long as you remember that the goal is to connect, think, feel, and do. That's the goal. And if we learn that as a leadership method, to apply ourselves in the best way possible, we don't only make ourselves better, but we also connect better. We create better energy that connects with others around us. We create a better culture, a better climate within the organization, and therefore we also create a more profitable organization. Well, that's all there is from me today, and I hope you really enjoyed it, and I hope you got something out of it. And if you have any questions, just reach out to me at a personal level. I always appreciate a LinkedIn comment. So if you happen to be on LinkedIn or whatever, feel free to post something if you really enjoyed it and it was insightful. That you actually did this session and stuff like that. That helps me a little bit as well. All right. Well, thank you so much for attending this. And then if I hear from you in the future, then that would be absolutely awesome. Thanks. Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm not leaving. I'm just finishing the presentation. Yeah. So I'm going to go back to. Let me go. So I'm just going to go back to the main screen. Yeah. So just so that you guys all know, I'm done presenting. Now I'm talking. Yeah. Yeah. Of course. Beautiful. Good. Excellent. That's a great question. Here's the thing. If you're not thinking about it, in all likelihood you won't be in it. Right? So that's the first thing. So it requires a level of consciousness in our deliberate ability to be able to connect with ourselves, and we have to. That has to become kind of a new normal, and that takes practice, right? So that's the first thing. The other thing too is simply just the moment you're connecting with your body and you're feeling how your body is connecting, that you're starting to align the think, the feel, and the act. And try doing that, right, while you're doing work. So if you're, let's say you go back to work now and you're back in the office, try and just connect with yourself while you're doing tasks. Yeah? And I can guarantee you it's going to feel very different. Yeah? Uh-huh. That's a good question. I think the most important thing, and again, this is about leadership, right? This is about who's going to step up, right? And are we going to wait for a person who has a job title, right? That is, that's the person that's the leader. Well, therefore, they're the ones. Or are we going to step up? And ultimately, it's on us. It's not a top-down thing that we can expect. It's a bottoms-up thing. It really is from how are we going to apply ourselves as leaders, and how are we going to use that as a way to be able to influence our direct environments, and not just work environment, but it's home environment. It's whatever environment it is that we find ourselves in. What are we going to do about that? Right? And I think that's what's really important, and it's going to be up to every single one of us to have a voice in how we want that future world to look like. Yeah. The one thing we could all agree on is not going to be the same as what it was, and that's a good thing, because the world that we were in before was not perfect. right? So we have this opportunity to do things differently. We have this opportunity to explore things differently. And we have this opportunity that there are actually people in these higher positions that are willing to listen because they've learned something from this as well. So you're going to have a much bigger listening ear. You're going to have a bigger audience based on what you feel might be a better future. And especially, of course, we're in an HR environment right now, especially with regards to connectedness, culture, right, engagement, all of these kind of things. And I think that could be a very powerful thing. Yeah, and that's the only way we're going to be able to do it. Yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Let me just see here. Let me see how I do that. Oh, here we go. Got it. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Our energy can be our energy. So yes and no. So have you ever have anybody ever mentioned to you like, oh, you have great charisma, you have great aura, you have kind of that kind of stuff. That's generally produced by the energy that we actually are producing. And if you've seen people before who are stressed out and exhausted, I mean, just their body language and their posture tells a lot about how they're feeling. The more that we are connected with ourselves in this way, we become more empathetic with ourselves, right? And what that does is it actually raises our posture. Our posture changes, the way we breathe changes, the way that we operate and think changes, and that has an immediate effect on the people around you. Right? And people absolutely feel that right away, and it's quite interesting how that works. It's instantaneous. Yeah. Exactly. Mindfulness is a circuit breaker, right? And so when our perceptions of our reality, because ultimately we all live in our own version of reality, right? And so when we have perceptions, and out of that comes an emotional story that we create in our minds, that then creates a desire to act based on that experience. We don't act based on the facts, we act on this experience that we're having. And what mindfulness does is it changes the experience, right? So the moment that you're changing that experience, therefore your desire for taking action changes as well. So that's immediately connected. And yes, that allows you, and in yin yang, in Tai Chi we call it yin yang, right? So yin and yang is separating action from inaction, right? So what that does is it allows us to take a step back and then be able to say, okay, wait, before I make this decision, before I act in this certain way, right? Let's think about this for a moment. What am I feeling? And what am I thinking? How do those two measure up? And which of those is influencing what I think I'm going to do? Right? That's how you align it. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So of course, I mean, we can't be in charge of how other people interpret or perceive the world, right? That's not on to us. The only thing that I have learned, right, is that when our hearts are in a compassionate place and an empathetic place, right, that energy is going to be used to be compassionate and empathetic. And I don't think there is anybody who has been intimidated by another human being who happens to care about another human being, right? And that I think is really important. Mm-hmm. Everybody. Right now, the world can benefit from positive energy, right? Because there are a lot of people out there who need it, and just think about it, right? Just go outside. The amount of people who are afraid, right? And the bus drivers and, people in stores and all of these kind of who are exposed to, other human beings, they all need a little bit of positive energy, right? And our ability to transfer that energy on each other is critical, and if we want to create a better world for ourselves than the one that we lived in the past. You are you are most welcome. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. And well, you're most welcome. And something I want you to walk away with, right? And this is of course for everybody, is the next time you get to walk into an office, right? Ask yourself, what do I feel in this office? Right? Does it feel like the sun's shining? Does it feel like it's cloudy? Or does it feel like it's storming? Right? That is the combined energy of everybody collected. That is your engagement marker. You don't need an expensive survey to dictate what your engagement levels are in an organization. You can feel it if you are connected with that energy. Yeah. All right. Good. So I want to thank everybody for attending. It was so much fun. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope that it could shake a couple of ideas loose and some thinking about kind of how you might want to be working in the future. And of course, if you have any questions or anything you want to duplicate this maybe for your organization during the COVID crisis, I do this presentation for free. So I'll do that with any company. So let me know if you want to get this done, and I'm more than happy sharing this and bringing those ideas to the boardroom as well. And that's how I am passing on positive energy in my way, and I'm playing it back in this way as well. So that's my offer to you. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much. Right, and connect with me on LinkedIn. Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Good. 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 Awesome. And if that made a difference in your day, my job is done. Okay. Good. Awesome. Awesome. We can try. Yeah. So do you want to do the pose, right? So I gotta go back into picture a little bit more. There we go. Nice. There you go. Awesome. All right. Okay. Thank you all so much for coming. It was so much fun. Yeah. And I will speak with any one of you who reaches out. All right. See ya. Okay. Bye. Okay. Okay. Bye-bye. Bye.